Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Shepherd Station. We are back. Things might look a little different again. We did a little painting in here. We got a lot going on. We're trying to get our dedicated setup so we don't have to set things up every day when we try to do this. So just bear with us. We're going to bring you the same good content we always do. We are at the Stockyard, 24 East Church Street in Headland, Alabama. Come by and see us. Great food, great drinks, great people to hang out with. You see me, you see Andy. There's two guests in here today. You don't see Thomas, but he is here. He's over here, and there he is.
There he is.
He's going to be behind the scenes today. He may chime in on some stuff because we got a lot of questions. We got a really good show for you today. I do want to add something before we get going really good. It's kind of a confession on my part. You know, for the longest time, I looked at things so negatively. Taught throughout a whole long time in law enforcement that you always train to expect the worst, and if it doesn't happen, then you're ahead of the curve, right?
Right.
And, you know, through that, you kind of develop I'm always expecting bad, and the negativity starts to come. And over the last little bit, I've been realizing, you know, life's not negative. And as I was driving in today, it's a beautiful day, and I just realized, you know, today is a really good day to be a good day. And I'm just thankful for everything that we're doing. I'm thankful for everything that God is doing for me. And I am thankful that we get to do this for God and to be able to glorify Him. And it's just been a blessing. I just wanted to add that.
Amen.
I'm just thankful, man. I'm thankful for all you people that are listening and watching. And I love you guys. I thank you for everything that your support. And I think that I speak for Andy and Thomas. So we really appreciate you, and we hope you have a wonderful day, and we hope you get a lot out of this episode.
Yeah. Every day's a good day. Some are just better than others.
That's right. Absolutely, man.
Right.
And if we can start looking at it like that and be thankful, I think they did a study that says you cannot be depressed, anxious, fearful, or anything when you have a heart of gratitude.
That's true.
And, you know, we all need to have that. Anyway, I wanted to say that, and I wanted to say, you know, I'm trying to get out of my negative ways. We're going to keep going. But we have today with us Amy and Alan Hendrickson. I always put the ladies first, so Alan, sorry, you're out of there. Alan and I policed together for a while. Alan was in narcotics with Houston County when we first met. That was a long time ago, man. Long time ago. I was in narcotics with Dothan PD, and Alan was in narcotics with Houston County. We worked on several cases together. We had a good time, but had a wild time, didn't we?
Very wild. Very wild.
And he's been a long-time law enforcement officer. Andy's got some things that he wanted to say about it. He's had a very, how would you put it, Andy? You said it a minute ago?
Challenging.
Unique.
Yeah. I've known Alan since, how old was you when I first met you, Alan? Probably about 12, 14?
If that, maybe.
When you lived in the
12.
trailer down next to Eddie?
Probably 10 to 12.
10 to 12 years old. So I've known Alan for an extremely long time.
Well, that was back in like 1914, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, a long time.
back in probably I met Alan when he was a young man, probably around 1987, somewhere 86, 87, that time frame in there when I first knew Alan when he was just a kid, and later knew Alan in his law enforcement career, and actually hired Alan a couple of times, didn't I?
Yes.
Yeah, twice. Whenever I was sheriff here in Houston County, but Alan has had a unique career. Alan and his wife Amy have overcome many challenges, and they've really had a rough road. But Alan began telling me about this program a couple years ago that he wanted to develop to help other law enforcement officers avoid these pitfalls that he fell into, and that affected his career, and more importantly, affected his life at home and his family. And I think you'll see today, whenever they get to talking about their unique challenges and the program that they've put together called Breaking the Cycle. And they've done this program probably, about a half a dozen times so far?
Yes.
Somewhere along there. This program is really expanding. They're getting a lot of requests from different agencies and organizations to come do their Breaking the Cycle program. And we're just going to let them talk a little bit about that today and some opportunities. And if you would love to bring Alan and Amy, whether it's to your law enforcement agency or if there's a civic group or there's a church group or whatever type of organization, could bring them to your local area to talk to your law enforcement officers, I think it would be tremendously beneficial. I've said before on a couple of posts that Alan has put on LinkedIn in reference to this training, and I've said, I think this is training that every law enforcement officer in America should have, and their spouses also. Alan and Amy's marriage is kind of unique. They've been married to each other 3 separate times. I don't know anybody else. I don't know another couple that can say that. But they've been married to each other 3 different times. And I think a lot of that goes as a testament to this woman's love for this man and her persistence to see him come out the other side as a better man, a better husband, and a better father. But we want to welcome Alan and Amy this morning. Alan, you want to tell us a little bit about, first of all, talk a little bit about your program, but just touch on it lightly, and then let's go back and let's talk about your struggles. And then Amy, of course, you can chime in at any time. Alan and Amy do this course together. It's a 4-hour course, and they could actually extend it longer. But it's a 4-hour course, and they tag team as they teach this course. They talk about their struggles. Alan talks about his side. Amy talks about her side, and what each one of them were doing during these rough times during their marriage and Alan's career. But Alan, tell us just a little bit about the program. And Amy, you chime in anytime you get ready.
All right, a little more about me is I started my law enforcement career in 2000 at the Houston County Sheriff's Office. I quickly made it to the narcotics division, which led me to being in situations that I wasn't ready for. So taking those situations and going personal with them, I began to drink too much, have the infidelity, and that rocked on, and it messed up my career and my family. I later on was able to still work in law enforcement, but I was hiding the drinking problem because at the time, if you came forward with things like that, there's just a stigma that you could get and no other agency would hire you. So that rocked on for many years. Amy and I have been married to each other 3 times, like Andy said, because of my infidelity. In 2015, I went and got help in rehab, and I came back and I've been sober ever since. Started researching peer support.
That's almost 10 years now sober.
That's
9 years or so in sober, and I think that's a tremendous accomplishment. And anyone who's ever been an alcoholic, I'm fortunate. I've never been an alcoholic, never been addicted to anything. But anybody that's been addicted to either alcohol or drugs would tell you that's a tremendous milestone.
That
there.
is a huge milestone.
That's something you celebrate every single day too.
Yes,
it's a day by day thing. That is a victory every single day. I know.
And I'll chime in on this. He is remarkable at it. We could go to restaurants. They ask, "Do you want something to drink?" It doesn't bother him. If we're with other people and they drink, it doesn't bother him. He's been remarkable.
Yeah, I've seen him in those situations before, and there's no temptation there whatsoever.
Well, I was going to ask that, Alan, because I was a heavy drinker there for a while too. Is the temptation still there?
No, I don't even think about it because
Really, that's amazing.
alcohol is one of those things that's sold everywhere. And like Amy said, the first thing they do when you sit down in a restaurant is tell you the drink special of the day.
Mm-hmm.
When you walk in the store, you have to walk by it. So during rehab and then during some recovery that I was doing at home when I got back, I just don't even think about it.
That's amazing.
I think you've realized the destruction that alcohol, the stranglehold that it had upon your life and the destruction that it caused, and therefore that takes away the temptation if you're able to look at that from a different perspective now than you were when you were drinking, right?
That's correct. So going on, when I got back, first thing I did when I got back from rehab is I sat down with Amy and I gave her an hour and I told her everything that I could think of that I'd done wrong to get it off of me and let her ask any questions so that we could deal with that, so that in the future there was no surprises. Nobody could walk by and say, "Hey, did you know he done this?" Well, yeah, he told me. So to my knowledge, I told her everything that I could remember. That was a rough hour, but I done it. I owned it, and I had to take it. So that is one of the big first steps that we took. And then I continued working in law enforcement. For the first year after rehab, I lived by myself, and Amy still lived at our home. And we started dating. We started rebuilding our relationship.
Do you think that was the only way to had you already been married twice at that point? Were y'all divorced when you went to rehab?
Mm-mm.
You were not? So you were in your second marriage when you went to rehab?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
We divorced 3 days after he got out of rehab. We signed the divorce papers.
Right. Okay. But you started dating each other.
That's correct.
Okay. All right. Go ahead.
Amy, let me ask you a question real quick. This is for you. I mean, we want to be completely open and candid because, you know, one of the big things for me, and again, I say this all the time because I don't want him to catch it first. Everybody knows my past and my history as far as marriage and everything goes. But my wife and I now have been married going on 10 years, and we really want to help other couples because we have a great marriage. And if you follow the role that, you know, God lays out for you, your marriage will thrive. It's not going to say it's going to be easy, but it'll thrive. Anyway, I digress. So I'll go back to the question for you as a wife when he sits down and gives you that time to ask him questions, and he's unpacked this box of just stuff. How hard was that?
It was hard. But I'm just equipped different than a lot of women. And I cried, I screamed. I hollered a little bit. And he says, we have neighbors. But
They'll call the cops. Right.
but I'm just different. My vows meant something. Yes, I fought every divorce, but it had to come to that. Right. I don't necessarily believe in divorce. I think we choose to love. I don't think we fall out of love. I think you have to choose to love every day, because some days you don't want to love him, or you know, he don't want to love me because it's just a bad day. But I think you choose to love, and that's what I did. And I was raised in church. He wasn't, and it was just, my parents were married 64 years when my dad died, and just marriage means.
It's a big
Yeah.
deal. Yeah.
We'll be together 29 years next month, and I've never cheated on him, even when we were divorced.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
And I
awesome.
can say that, and he believes it.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
When somebody asks you on a date and you cry, you know it ain't meant to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if I answered your question.
You did. You're right. When, you know, in a marriage, you have to choose that every day. I think it's really awesome that you guys decided to start dating again.
Yeah.
And I think in marriage, that's a very important thing. You know, there's the cliche saying, you know, never stop pursuing your spouse. You know, you can let things go stale. And especially in law enforcement, you know, when we get focused on what, you know, the job is, and we let all the demons from the job, and that's what we do. You know, we can sit there and blame it on, well, I've seen this and I've seen that and I've done this and I've done that. But at the end of the day, it's choices that we make to let that affect us. But when you do that, you know, the marriage can kind of start going stale, and you've got to make that decision to continue that pursuit of your spouse. You know, it took me a long time to understand that, you know. I think that's very important. I think it's awesome that you guys decided to date, because to be honest with you, you know, you guys have been together for 29 years. You can say you've been married for 3 years, but y'all have had one long continuous marriage for 29 years with a lot of bumps and bruises.
Yeah.
So anyway, I apologize. Go ahead.
No, you're fine. So when I came back, like I said, we started dating and working on our relationship. I then, at the same time, began working on my career. At the time, I was working for 2 agencies to be able to make ends meet and make the money I needed to support myself and the family. And then we started I went to Mississippi Leaps for peer support, and I came back and I enjoyed it. So then I went to Under the Shield for peer support and learned that training.
Real quick, Andy and I know what it is. Tell everybody, if they don't have a law enforcement background, what LEAPS is.
Okay, LEAPS is a program where it's peer-to-peer, and when you go through a traumatic event, you go and you sit down and you talk with your peers, and they help you. If you're struggling, you can call, and they will help you and sit down. It's built to come from someone that's been there, so when you're talking to them, they understand the what's going on in law enforcement and the trauma that we don't realize we experience. You know, an individual experiences 1 to 3 trauma events in their life. Law enforcement is what is the number now, Andy? The law enforcement experience and trauma.
Oh, it's probably, I don't know. I don't even know. I really don't know the statistics there, but it's going to be extremely high.
I think it's 100. I know it's 100 plus.
Yeah.
You know,
the average person only experiences, just a few traumatic experiences during their whole lifetime, where cops experience those, and firefighters and EMTs also, and soldiers. But they experience numerous traumatic experiences throughout their lifetime and have to deal with that, compared to the normal person who has a regular job.
Yeah.
That's correct. So we started doing that, and we wanted to learn more. So then we became coaches, law enforcement, life coaching. We have been with that program. Originally, it was Axon Coaching. Now it's Performance Protocol. And so we continue to grow at work and personally, the most important part. So later on, we decided we wanted to build a course and teach around the country called Breaking the Cycle. And what Breaking the Cycle is, by background, I come from a broken home, drug activity, alcohol activity, and things like that. So when I started struggling, I went to what I knew. Whereas Amy was raised in a more Christian home, then she went to what she knew. So we sat down and put that together, and over a year, we built that program that we're now going around teaching.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I know, Alan, we were talking about traumatic experiences. I can think of one in particular. When I was sheriff, Alan was involved in an officer-involved shooting in Dothan one night. Had a guy who was intent on being shot and killed by law enforcement, and they got in a chase with this guy, and we had a gun. He was holding it out the window of the vehicle, pointing it at vehicles going around Ross Clark Circle during heavy traffic time at night.
I remember that.
And Alan was the lead car in the pursuit, and we always had a policy at the sheriff's office: if they're a danger, we're going to put them off the road.
Yeah.
And Alan ended up, he had to get on the opposite side of the vehicle than you would normally get on to pit someone. But he got on pitted the guy from the opposite side. They ended up in the median with the guy's truck pointed back this way and Alan's car this way. Mm-hmm. His driver's side door, he couldn't open it. Passenger side door was against the grass in the median. He couldn't open it. And the guy's standing up on the windowsill of his vehicle in his full Army uniform with a handgun and pointed at his head. And then Alan, he actually drops the gun down towards Alan. Alan fired, another officer, deputy there fired, and a Dothan PD officer fired, and ended up killing the guy there on the scene.
I remember.
And when I got the call, I went to the hospital to check on Alan. He had some frag in his arm, some fragmentation from some of the rounds in his arm. And, of course, in the next room was the suspect, and I went over there and checked on him, and he was deceased. And then I went to the scene, and the suspect's father showed up at the scene, and then I had to relate to the father that his son had been killed by law enforcement. But it was a very traumatic event for numerous law enforcement officers that were involved that particular night. And you were drinking at that time, right?
That's correct.
Did you use alcohol to try to cope with that situation?
I did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You see Amy shaking her head.
Yeah.
We giggle about it now, but when we all first started, you didn't have all the peer support and stuff like that. Mm. And I think that it was when you went through that, either they were just getting started with that, or they hadn't got that going real good yet, have they? Mm-hmm. Or did they?
No, there wasn't peer support at the time, but Andy did send us to see a counselor, and we did go through that and get treatment through the counselor.
Yeah. Well, the thing is they don't prepare you. We've said this multiple times with different guests on this show. It's trying to get better. I can see that it's trying to get better, but back in the day, you didn't really get prepared to deal with on the emotional level the things that you see. So do you think that's gotten better over time?
I definitely think it's gotten way better. We still have a long way to go.
Yeah.
But it has definitely gotten way better, and that's what we're trying to help with, is continue to bring training and different training to Alabama and to other law enforcement officers as we continue to help break the stigma and get officers to ask for help. A mentally well officer is going to be much better. You'll get less community complaints. Mm-hmm. Use of force will be down. Sick days will be down. They will understand their finances. Their family will do better. So mentally, if you are training yourself just as much as we are for everything else, you're going to be a better officer.
Right. I think peer support is a wonderful thing because, like I said one time, when you're a cop only other cops know what you go through on a daily basis. And cops feel more comfortable speaking with other law enforcement officers about their issues. Now, you could take the content of the program that you two have, and you could have some counselor or some psychologist stand on the stage and teach the same thing from their perspective, and it's not going to mean near as much as it would coming from you to those law enforcement officers out there in the audience, or other first responders, either one. And I think your program, I mean, your law enforcement is your game. That's your job. That's your gig. But I think that there are also other first responders, whether they be military, EMT, firefighters, or other law enforcement officers out there who are experiencing the same trauma and using the same mechanisms to cope with that trauma that you did also. And they could also benefit from this. So I don't think it's unique to law enforcement. I think this is a program that would be beneficial to anybody in the first responder community, because only those first responders understand what each other are going through.
And that's what we want with the program, is we want to let you know, to be open a little bit more as I continued to grow, and Amy and I continued to grow. And she stood behind me as I come to her and said, hey, I want to try this or do this. She's like, okay, we'll try it.
She was good with that until you said, I'm going to put you on the stage, right?
That's right. So I continued to work at those smaller agencies, and later on, I decided it was time to try to go to a bigger agency. I applied at a couple of different bigger agencies. I did not get hired. I didn't think nothing about it. I continued adding value, and I knew it was because of what I'd done in the past. So I continued adding value to myself. Amy and I continued to grow. I reapplied and still didn't get hired. And so we just continued growing. We didn't think nothing else about it. Later on, I was blessed with the opportunity to be hired at Dothan PD. Chief Will Beanie is very supportive of wellness. Chief and I spoke, and Chief said, hey, everybody makes mistakes. You've been doing what you're supposed to for a long time. How long should you have to be punished for decisions you made in the past? And that's the kind of leadership we need.
Let me say this. It's called God's timing.
Yeah.
I was going to say that's probably what it was. It wasn't. It was God's timing for you.
I remember Alan calling me whenever he was working with smaller agencies and telling me every time he applied somewhere and every time he got turned down. And I think I told him a time or two, I said, you never know where you're at that particular given time. You may be influencing somebody that needs your influence at that time, and you may not ever realize what you've done for someone, but you were in the place where God wanted you at that particular time.
That's important when we can get to that point where we just trust, okay, God's got me where he wants me.
Trust.
And that's a big thing, because that's, you lose it in this job. You lose a lot of trust.
Yeah.
But if we could ever put that trust back in God and say, no, he's got me where he wants me. It's his plan, not ours.
Yeah. So. Well, it's great that you had a spouse that would reassure you of that too. Not say, well, just quit applying, you just stay here the rest of your career or whatever. But she reassured you that it was all going to come to you in God's timing. That's for sure.
I want to say something about the wellness, and I get nervous. But anyways, Alan, I watch Alan. This is with him. He's gone through all this wellness, all these leaps, all this stuff, and he reads all this stuff. Mm-hmm. And so the other day, I really believe that if the law enforcement officer is calm, when they're at work, they're not worried about how they're going to lie to their wife tonight to leave the house. Mm-hmm. If things are good with their marriage, their home life, if they've got an outlet they can talk to someone. Alan had a call the other day that could have went so ugly, but because he's so calm now, he doesn't get out of the car, guns blazing. Mm-hmm. And I really think that if these, I'm not a law enforcement officer, the agencies have these wellness programs in place, that we would see less, I don't know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
The calls would be less
volatile. Yeah.
Volatile.
It's not
You're
going to
trying
turn
to
into
say
something.
we would see a better quality product coming from the office.
Well, I'm not going to
see it in him.
Yeah.
If you want to talk about that, where the car that could have been so ugly.
Briefly, I can. A car pulls up beside me, says somebody's shooting at him. Then the car behind it gets out and says, they're shooting at me. They shot me. And so I'm at a red light, and I got somebody standing by my window. A car right there shot at me. I end up pulling them over, and we end up going over the situation. But again, with that guy running up and that car in front of it, it could have gotten really ugly. And they, at the end of the day, both cars had weapons.
Yeah.
So
you were already behind the power curve potentially.
that's correct.
Yeah.
And when you're on edge about a volatile situation that you have going on at home, and then another volatile situation presents itself in a law enforcement environment, then you're going to be more on edge about that also. You know, if you got somebody that's happy at home, everything's going good at home for them, then they're going to be a better worker. It doesn't matter if it's in law enforcement or what field it's in, but especially in a field like law enforcement where there's a lot of danger out there, you need to have, when you're a cop, you need to have your mind on your business. You need to have your mind on what's going on. You need to be observant and watching people. You don't have all these thoughts racing through your mind about, am I going to get divorced? Am I not going to get divorced? What lie am I going to tell? What lie am I not going to tell? You know,
What's she doing behind my back?
yeah, all that kind of stuff. If you've got everything's good, then hey, you're doing what you're supposed to do. You're in the condition that you need to be in while you're at work, while you're there on the streets.
And it's vital that even at work, that your leadership supports that, because you don't want any problems. Example, our new captain came in and made it very clear that if you need help because you're struggling with something, we are human, that please ask for it. And if he finds out somebody talked about it and bashed you about it, he was going to handle it. So he set a clear standard that we're going to take care of you.
That is so important because, over the years, I did it. I'm sure Andy's done it. And there's just a long list of officers that they would hide the things they were going through, because you didn't want that stigma of, that guy can't handle this.
Right.
You type A personalities, we're supposed to be tough, strong, and handle anything, right?
That's right.
But we're all human. But do you see a lot of guys not willing to come forward and ask for that help? Because that's what we used to see.
Now, as time has moved forward and we continue to grow wellness and show how important it is, and show that you can be transparent and talk about your problems and your past and it not bother you at work, we are seeing more people come forward. So that's how we built our class. And then what happened is I reached out to Jacksonville State University, Caleb Littlejohn, and said, hey, we've built this class, and I know you like wellness. And Caleb said, hey, come see me, we'll talk about it. Well, now we are blessed that Jacksonville State University sponsors that class, our 4-hour class across the state, so that it costs nobody, an agency, nothing to host it, or an officer to attend it.
That's good.
So, and then we kept going with the program, and now we are speaking at other organizations that we'll talk about a little later.
Yeah. Well, I think this is something that should be taught in the police academy to every new recruit that's going through the police academy.
Especially if it's just a 4-hour block.
Yeah, because you need to get in on the front end instead of the back end. You can always guide people better than you can try to fix them later.
Yeah, no doubt. So, we've talked about it. We kind of beat around it. And obviously we don't have time to get into the full 4-hour block of instruction, but let's dive into your program. And how would you start the course and kind of go through the program just a little bit so we can get an understanding of what it is that you guys talk about?
Okay. So
the first thing we do when we open the class is everybody has to introduce themselves, and they have to tell us what they're grateful for that day and what they're struggling with. So we all know a little bit about each other.
Right.
I like that.
Now, go ahead.
all right. And then we come into the class and we talk about the training and our marriage, and then Amy covers why we come up with the name of Break the Cycle.
Yeah. And it's not just breaking the cycle of your home life. Even not just the drinking, but even infidelity played a big part of Alan's childhood. Mm-hmm. And so when mom and dad are cheating, you don't, and I'm not excusing it. He shouldn't cheat. Nobody should cheat.
Right.
But when mom and dad's doing it, how do you know as a grown up that it's bad?
That's acceptable behavior
Yeah.
if you grew
This
up
is-
watching
yeah.
that.
Right.
And then also, this is our third marriage. So breaking that cycle of me and him always. And we'll be married 7 years this year, and 7 years is like our mark where things start falling apart. And this year we're not going to fall apart. Right?
I'm not marrying you again.
Yeah, you be careful. She might tell you the same thing. So.
Yeah. So then what we do is we get into about how you get in law enforcement, and that, when you get in law enforcement, you go to work every day and you want to make a name for yourself. You want to be sharp. Everybody knows you're a hard worker. But we don't put that same energy in at home when we get in law enforcement, and then the home life starts trickling to the side. So we cover that for about an hour of how you get in here because you want to get promoted. But at the same time, like I said, you're not trying to get promoted at home with your spouse or your kids, and you don't realize it till you're putting the job first.
Yeah. Law enforcement is addictive.
Oh, it is.
And
Yeah.
I said earlier that there was
You're not
nothing
addicted?
I've ever been
No,
addicted to.
you were
but
addicted to that.
I had to
He still is.
backtrack.
Yeah, I know he is. I mean, and we all are. You
And
know.
still are.
I'm addicted to Alan.
Yeah.
Oh, that's sweet.
I don't know.
You should appreciate that woman right there.
Yes, I do. So kind of the first hour, like I said, we go over what you're getting into law enforcement. The second hour, we start talking about burnout, signs that you're doing and things you start doing, whether it be the drinking, addiction to pills, infidelity, whatever your outlet changes to. Because as law enforcement officers, we are adrenaline junkies. The job gets old, so we start seeking other things for fun. And that's where your infidelity comes in, your finances, or you decide you want to go buy a new four-wheeler or a boat, truck to reach that high. So you start hunting it. And we've got to learn to maintain that and how to do it in a good way.
What would be one of the first signs that you would recognize in a? I don't want to say a new officer because a new officer is not going to have burnout, but in an experienced officer, what would be one of the first signs of burnout that you would see?
3-4 year, 5-year officer.
Yeah.
They usually start coming in late, or their citizen complaints go up. But one of the quickest ways is they're late for work. Mm-hmm. And when they start being late, you start kind of watching, and you'll see that there's something going on at home.
So it's a change in their normal behavior.
That's correct.
From being that guy that's always there and briefing
He was there early
all the time,
Yeah.
and now he's kind of falling back a little bit. That's first key indicator.
That's to me it is.
And let me back up here a little bit. You've seen this from an administrative side too, because one of the departments you were in, you actually made it to captain.
That's correct.
So you've seen it from an administrative side as well.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So again, we start looking at, if you're talking about officers, you start looking at little signs that are given. They're late. Their report starts being short. Mm-hmm. They're not really talkative to people. So it's a cumulative of different things they're doing.
Just their overall quality goes down. Quality of their work.
Can I say something?
Yes, ma'am.
And Alan, his squad, they probably, if they listen to this, they'll probably laugh. He'll come home and he goes, so-and-so just went in their self today. I'm going to go out on the porch and call them. So he doesn't let it build. If he starts seeing something, he worries about his coworkers and his squad, because if they're not all good, because they all have to work together. Mm-hmm. And so he reaches out to them.
Well, you want to reach out because that next call, you may be in a situation where you may have to use deadly force, and you want to know that your partner is very good and clear. They're not struggling with other things. They're making good decisions. So, or you don't want them to be the officer that shows up at a call and the call's going fine, and they show up and it just turns into a bad situation because they can't communicate.
And that goes through your mind upon receiving the call. If everybody's got it in their head, this guy's going through a lot. And on a squad, you guys will get pretty close. We all did. And, hey, we know that, I'll just use myself, we know that Eric's going through a lot of stuff at home, blah, blah, blah. And that call gets dispatched, and I'm sent as a backup. That's going through that officer's mind. Oh, man, I hope he's good.
Yeah.
On the way. So you're already preparing yourself for that before you ever arrive on the call.
Right.
I think a prime example of some of the stuff that we're talking about and how it can affect lives, not only the law enforcement officers' lives, but if you take a look at this last highly publicized shooting in Illinois,
The boiling water?
this deputy with the lady with the boiling water.
I'm going to elaborate on that in a minute.
If you take a look at that situation, that officer had worked for 6 different agencies over a 4-year period. You know, in law enforcement circles, we call that a clue, because I don't think he was advancing himself every time he went to an agency. And he had 2 DUI arrests.
Yeah.
I don't know if there have been convictions there. And that reflects upon him. He's definitely got some issues going on, and you can look and see how it affected there. Now, you know, I don't want to get too much into the threat he was facing. Okay, you could tell this woman was mentally challenged, and he should have tailored his approach to her being mentally challenged instead of trying to take charge and using profanity. But he used profanity, and this lady ended up trying to throw some hot boiling water on him. And then, you know, he ends up shooting her. Then he uses profanity after that, and it's just his whole attitude. You could tell there were multiple issues going on in this officer's personal life away from work that was affecting his professional life, and now is going to affect his freedom, and it's affected another family by taking one of their loved ones away that I'm not sure necessarily had to be shot. I'm not going to say, you know, it's hard Monday morning quarterback, but we can go back and critique this stuff. I think there were definitely other ways to deal with the situation they were in. You know, maybe another officer should have directed him to go over and turn the water off and take it off the stove instead of let her go into the kitchen and some things like that. But there are clues there. And not only for that officer, though, but, you know, I fault the administrator who hired this guy in this last job.
That's going to go back to what we've been saying, though. Everybody's trying to fill spots.
Yeah, they're trying to fill spots, but you should not be trying to fill open slots just to be filling that slot. You know, it goes back to, and we'll get into my selection story later on that I use in my Bear the Sword presentation. But why hire people just to be hiring people? This is what you're going to get.
And those are the outcomes that are going to happen.
Yeah, you got to look at quality versus quantity. You know, as a sheriff or a chief, I would rather be out there answering calls and working a zone or standing out directing traffic in the rain than I would rather than hiring some of these individuals that are getting hired. We don't need to keep passing our problems around to different agencies. Yeah. And you can't tell me that, you know, you should be doing a very thorough background investigation on these officers. And a lot of times these officers are operating within less than a 100-mile area, if not smaller than that, jumping from department to department. And people know their history and go, well, you know, we need people.
We need
hire this individual. So I think it's definitely wrong to hire individuals like that. And that just goes back to your point about there being problems there in their personal life.
I was going to elaborate on that, but you're right. We've only seen, you know, what we've seen on the media, so I'm going to leave that alone.
Yeah, we'll
to
address
me,
that later.
It looked like there could have been some other things done, but
well, it was definitely a borderline shooting. It's one of those shootings that, and I see some shootings, and I don't want some cops to get mad with me here, but as a former administrator, I see some shootings there that are justifiable, but could they have been avoided also at the same time?
True.
I think we see some that could be avoided, even though they are justifiable in nature.
Yeah.
So, and taking a human life is something that's huge. I mean, you don't want problems, your alcoholism, your infidelity, your problems at home with your wife, or whatever the case may be, to affect your judgment on taking another human life, because that's the one thing that should be the hardest for a human to do. No human being, unless you're a sociopath or psychopath, should want to willingly take another human being's life. That should be something that's very difficult to do.
And that goes back to, I know Andy and I are kind of hogging this up, but that's heavy, you know. And when you have all those other issues that, like, let's say that we go back to when you were drinking heavy, you already have the issues that you're dealing with, the issues at home, the alcoholism, all that, and then you add the fact that you just took somebody's life. I mean, that's heavy, man. That could be a game changer for you. I mean, how many officers have we seen put a gun to their head?
Yeah.
That's correct.
You know?
Yeah.
That's what I was going to say. I think the worst part of the shooting was the fact that this guy lost his life, or Alan. And I think that's really what brought a toll on him, honestly. Was that more than the wreck, more than him getting shot, more than anything, is that this guy lost his life, that this guy got to the point where he wanted to lose his life.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
And then after we do the burnout section, we move in to start talking about how to recover, and we go over different methods on how to recover. One of the things that I learned in rehab is making your bed in the morning. So you have to make your bed in the morning.
We're fixing to get in a fuss.
She forgot to make the bed the other day.
one time in 7 years, I leave the house without making the bed.
So,
She's gonna hit you.
And not on purpose. I didn't even realize it till he sent me a picture and then called me.
so yeah,
So go over, and I've heard the story, and Jocko Willink will even sit there and say it. But go over why it's important to make your bed in the morning.
well, you go over It's a mindset. So you make your bed, your room is organized. So when you get ready to come home at the end of the day, you're not walking in there going, "Oh man, I'm going to a messy home or bed." So in short, it's just starting the day with organization. One of the other things that we did when we came back is in our room there's no TV. So we trained ourselves when it's time to go to bed, you get in the bed. So we don't watch TV in the bed, nothing like that. So then in the mornings we try to read some motivational quotes and start our day positive. We always try to start the day with something positive, except for when Amy kicks me or I'm supposed to sleep late and it's her day to work and she needs all the lights on. So we're still human, so we still fuss.
Things still happen.
Right. Amy, did you ever think that Alan would be successful in overcoming his alcoholism and the infidelity issues and the other trauma issues that he had? I mean, I'm sure you had your doubts at certain times. I know you have faith in Alan. You love him tremendously, and you have faith in him. But did you ever have thoughts like, I just don't know if he's ever going to be able to do this. I don't know if we're ever going to be able to stay married?
Probably, I absolutely knew he could overcome it.
Right.
When I met him, he was just this young kid, and I could see his potential, and I knew where he came from, and I love his family. Don't get me wrong that we're talking about his family, but that last affair, because he actually lived with the girl, and if they happen to watch this, I have no bad feelings toward her or anybody in that situation. I hope she has a good life. I hope she gets everything she wants because I've forgiven her, and I hope she's forgiven me for my role in it. Even though we don't have to talk about it.
That's called grace.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's tough.
And but after he got out of rehab, he didn't go to rehab to fix us. He actually went to rehab to fix his job and to fix that relationship. So he'd been living with this girl for 7, 8, 9 months. And he comes home, and then we get divorced. And the papers have been ready for since December, and this was August, September. And so every time that, and it don't ever take long, every time I make up my mind and I switch my phone off for 2 days, here comes Alan knocking on the door. You need to turn your phone back on. I think the longest we went without seeing each other is rehab ever in 29 years. The longest we went without speaking, maybe a day, even through all the women and all this stuff. Because there was a lot of, and this is a bad thing to have. This was my mindset. If I didn't know about it, it couldn't hurt me.
Right.
Did I know Alan was having affairs and leaving the house? Yes. Did I care? Yes. But what did I do? I just shut it out because I didn't know about it. Don't call me, don't tell me.
Right.
And that's not a good thing to have now. I want to know. And if it happens again, he's gone.
Yeah.
But I don't feel like it will.
I think Alan's pretty committed. Alan, we talk probably 3 or 4 times a week. At least usually, and Alan's on target. It would totally shock me, and I think if he started falling off somewhere, that I would get a call. And I hope Alan would call me or somebody to talk, but I just don't think I'd have it. He is so focused on his mission now of taking what has happened to him, the trauma and everything that's happened to him and his marriage and his family, and turning that around to help law enforcement officers across the nation. And when Alan called me and started talking about this program, and then he started talking about getting you in here to stand up and just you two pouring your soul out to whoever wants to come to this training, I told him, I said, this is going to be your bread and butter right here, because I don't think there's anybody else in the nation. I don't think there's any other law enforcement couple in the nation that is doing what you two are doing. That most people just don't have the guts to do that. They don't they're not going to stand up and just talk about everything openly that's happened in their marriage and their life. But you two are willing to share that, and you're willing to do that to try to help others avoid what you two have been through. And
It's a testimony.
That's commendable. I mean,
It's a testimony, and
yeah,
testimonies of that nature right there are more powerful than any program. I'm not going to program it. More powerful than any book knowledge you can obtain. You know, when somebody sits there and you can see that they went through those things, whether it be a testimony to your salvation, to a marriage, whatever the case is, that's powerful. Y'all's story is very powerful. I've got a question for Alan, as far as, you know, because I saw some of the things that you were doing, and I need to tell you I'm sorry, because I didn't step up and say, "Hey, man, what are you doing?" You know, I just kind of sat back like, "Well, that's Alan."
yeah.
You know,
We're supposed to rebuke each other, though.
and we are. And
As Christians, you're supposed to do that.
I was
Call 'em out.
not in that place because I was doing a lot of the same stuff.
Yeah,
But so you go through all this, the drinking, the infidelity, and even to living with another woman. I got to know, what was it that pushed you to say, you know what, I need to get back. I need to go back.
I think at the time that I was living with this other lady, which was a dispatcher at the agency that I was working for, and I'll leave it at that, for just privacy of the other people. There would come a point that we had a rough evening, and I end up, long story short, losing my job over it. And she actually told me that I needed help, and I was just going to lose everything. Behind that, she leaves. I call Amy.
Yeah.
I call Amy and say,
You're
"Hey,
rock.
yeah, you think I got a drinking problem?"
yeah.
No. And then, so Amy didn't never want to just tell me, but then she told me. And so between the two, I just said, you know what? I've lost everything. I have no job. I have no relationships that's going anywhere. What am I going to do? So I went to the liquor store and bought my favorite liquor, and I put it in the seatbelt on the passenger side of my SUV at the time, and I said, you're going to quit controlling me. And I drove to Amy's house, told her I was going to rehab. I drove to Warrior, Alabama, and checked myself in.
With that bottle of liquor.
That bottle of liquor sitting there, and I never opened it. And when I got there, they poured it out, and they were like, why you got this liquor? And I told them, I said, I'm going to beat that bottle.
Yeah,
And just from there, we have just been growing.
yeah.
That's awesome.
Man,
I got
that's-
a God thing about that day.
Yeah.
That's the day he lost his job. And so I was going to Living Waters to a therapist, and I told the lady, I says, like, I pray that God makes me quit loving Alan all the time. I said, I just continuously pray it. She says, well, do you feel the release in your heart? And I said, no, I don't. I said, I never do, and I just keep praying for it. I get home, and Alan calls me and says, I'm going to rehab. And you tell me that's not a God thing.
Oh yeah, prayer works.
Yeah.
That's something I wanted to ask you guys. I'm going to chime in.
Here, step over here. Come on.
How has faith played into this whole situation for you? You know, you guys, I heard you say you grew up in a Christian, household and all these things, and I heard you mention some things. So how has your relationship with God and all of that really played into this?
I feel like if I didn't have the Christian values, I would have. The advice everybody always gave me, and I hate this, and so if y'all are listening, don't give people this advice when they're going through a divorce. Go sleep with somebody else, and you'll get over him.
Yeah, that's a cure. Yeah,
Yeah, that's just another problem.
yeah,
So I think my faith is what has us together today.
No doubt.
You know, me and pulling him back in with that, because I feel like God blesses marriage. I believe he wants us to be married. You know, marriage, I can't talk.
yeah,
But y'all know what I
You're
mean.
doing fine.
Say it, Andy.
You're doing fine.
yeah. I mean, God does bless marriage, and He wants people to be married. He wants people to have happy marriages. But I know what you're saying.
And I think my faith in Alan is what kept him on my coattails for 29 years, even if he was doing something else. So I don't know where we would be if I didn't have God in my life. I pray every day for him, to keep him safe, for him to continue making the good choices, and to show. Every time I say to show me what my purpose is in life, Alan calls me with another booking.
Yeah,
So
This thing,
There's your answer right there.
yeah, I think this thing has exploded, and we don't want to reveal all
No,
all
no.
of the story
Not at
because,
all, no.
and I think this would make a great book.
We
Most definitely
want
make
to.
a great book, and y'all have got several big dates coming up. You've booked a lot of different talks this year already. You've got one really big venue that they're going to present this program in that can't release right now until that organization actually releases it on their media channels. But looking forward to that. That's going to be a huge audience that you're going to be put in front of there. And it seems like every time you go speak somewhere, then you've got 10 or 15 or 20 other people going, we want you to come to our agency. We want you to come to our agency. And this thing is just exploded. And I think it's not only going to be a blessing to the people that hear your story, but the more you put that story out there and you see the successes of people that you're helping, it's going to be even a bigger blessing to you.
Yeah, one of the things that we continue to do as we're doing this program is looking for other training, mental wellness training for law enforcement officers. So one of the big things that recently we were able to accomplish, Amy and I went down to, I called her and said, hey, I'm going to a conference in Tallahassee. I'm going to be there 4 days. I want you to go with me. Well, both of y'all know as law enforcement officers, if you're going to a conference for 4 days, typically you don't take your spouse.
Typically, no, you
I
didn't.
didn't think
so-
nothing about, and I wanted her to go with me.
Right,
So that just
right.
shows you the difference. So it was called Struggle Well and Boulder Crest Foundation, and they're in 18 states. And it's how to grow through post-traumatic growth. So we then began working with them, and we can proudly say that that program, it's a 1 day, 2 day, 5 day, and some in-house program training, is coming to Alabama, and it's completely a nonprofit organization, so it'll be at no cost. So starting next year, that program will be going around
Give that
Alabama.
name of that program again.
Boulder Crest Foundation and Struggle Well Training, but it's through Boulder Crest Foundation.
Okay.
it started with veterans. And so now they're going into the law enforcement. And basically the concept is we all struggle. We just got to learn how to new coping mechanisms to be good at struggling, to be good in it, to stay where you're supposed to stay while you're struggling. So we all struggle every day.
No,
Every day.
No.
So
It
let's-
wouldn't be life if you didn't.
Let's go back, Alan. I want to ask you a question. Amy answered Thomas's question very well. And how about you, man? Have you seen a growth in your faith in God, in her, in all of this throughout this time of healing for you and her?
Yes, as we continue to heal every day, definitely my faith has grown. We don't go to a particular church all the time, but Amy does read scripture every night, and I'm laying over there, act like I'm asleep, but I'm sitting there looking at it. So, or she tells me about it. So it definitely plays a role in having faith.
Well, I agree with that. Hey, and if you guys don't have a regular church, Gateway Church in Headland, Alabama, you guys are more than welcome to come.
Listen,
That's a plug for Gateway Church.
If as we get here to close out today, but how can an agency, how can an organization, how can a church get a hold of you, make contact with you and Amy to book you to come to their location and put on this program?
They can just reach out to us, give us a call, or send us an email.
Yeah, you want to give your email, and Thomas will put these in the show notes too for them to be able to contact you. But what's the best email to send you a request for this program?
It would be alan@performance-protocol.com. If you want to call either one of us, my number is 334-648-0745. Amy's number is 334-596-4187.
Yeah. So I think this, I'm telling you, this is a very worthwhile program for not only law enforcement, but any first responders or military personnel and their families. And this is something that you'd like, husbands to bring their wives to, and wives to bring their husbands to, depending on who is actually in the field of law enforcement, or which one's the first responder, or if both of them are first responders, because we have quite a few of those here in the Wiregrass area too.
Yes, that's one of the things that we're very proud of with the agreement with Jacksonville State University. A spouse is 100% welcome to attend our training.
Right. And agencies within Alabama can get this training for their officers for free through Jacksonville State University, correct?
Yes, we do 4 classes a year of Break the Cycle, and then we'll be doing Struggle Well starting next year.
Right. So if you contact Alan or Amy, and they can give you the details on how to get up with Caleb Littlejohn, which Caleb, he's a tremendous asset to the law enforcement in the state of Alabama as far as training and education goes. Jacksonville State University up in North Alabama runs a tremendous program up there, and they've really got their game together.
Well, they accommodate well.
Yeah, they do.
They really do.
We have two classes coming up in Enterprise in August, August 7th, and
August 27th.
there's still room there. So you just have to go through the JSU site
That's correct.
There you
and
go.
book. So if anybody in the Wiregrass area.
And we also have a event coming up, Blue Watch event.
Yeah,
You want to talk about it?
yeah.
Andy?
Blue Watch event. My friend Burke Swearingen. I was privileged to speak along with Adam Davis and Lieutenant Colonel Grossman up there last year, and that event is even bigger this year. And we got a lot of different breakout sessions. If you want to take a look at bluewatch.org, that event's coming up in October. I think it's October 23rd or 24th.
22nd, I believe.
Is it 22nd?
Maybe the 23rd.
Okay, all right. I'll get Thomas that info, and he can put that in the show notes also, and so you'll have a link to that organization also. But it's a tremendous organization that assists law enforcement officers throughout the state of Alabama, and like I said, that big event will be coming up in October.
Yeah, and also in October, we will be speaking at a national conference that hopefully we can release that information in the very near future.
Yeah, that's going to be huge.
Yeah. And I'm scared.
You'll be fine.
You'll be fine, Amy. You'll be
good.
fine. All you got to do is stand up and tell your story.
Yeah.
Just the way you do.
I know we don't want to give too much of y'all's program. We want people to attend the program. We want people to
Yeah.
get that training. But let me ask you something, Amy. It was said earlier in this that, Andy's always said this, that law enforcement is a lifestyle.
It is.
It's not a typical, existence. That goes as well for a spouse of a law enforcement officer. Is there any advice that you're willing to give on our show here to spouses of law enforcement officers to help them out through any struggles that they may be going through, or what they may see and what they can expect?
How I go about it is I trust Alan's training. When he walks out the door, I'm not worried. I don't worry. And he's been shot, he's been in all this stuff. I don't worry. I have faith. And plus I ask God to protect him. And I've just done it for so long that the best thing that we do now that works for us is when he comes in, if he's had a stressful day, I don't load him up. I can look at his face. Most people can look at their husband's face or wife's face and tell what kind of day they've had. I don't load him up. I let him depress. He goes and he takes off his uniform. Then he becomes Alan. He's not the cop anymore, And he can talk to me about stuff. He'll tell me, hey, I just need to talk to somebody about this. And it's between us. It doesn't get out. And I just open up. I guess what would you say? I just open up to make it safer, to make it more honest, to make him more comfortable to come to me.
Right.
Years ago, it was a weekend, and it was a terrible weekend. He drank all weekend, and he had a suicide of a 14-year-old.
Right.
This is when he worked in Henry County. And so it was just an awful weekend. It was just, I was ready to just be done with him.
Yeah.
And a few months after that, he's wanting to show me something on his computer, and he accidentally goes by this picture. And my son was 14 at the time, and I just saw a glimpse of it. That's all it took, was just one glimpse. And that boy looked just like our son laying there. And it brought back that weekend, and now I understood. But he didn't feel like he could come to me and say, Amy, this boy looked just like Fred.
Yeah.
He didn't feel safe. I make it a safe place that he can talk to me and he can tell me his feelings. I don't know if that answers your question.
It does. I mean, I've heard other law enforcement officers, my wife doesn't want me to talk about what, happened. She doesn't want to think that all that happens. And I've heard that a lot. It sounds like what you're saying is, as a spouse of a law enforcement officer, be it a husband or be it a wife, whatever, there needs to be those open lines of communication and the support.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a big thing, especially for, newly married couples with one of them being in law enforcement or any first responder role. I think that that's big.
Yeah. If he feels like he can't talk to me about that, then there's a big
Yeah.
just a big divide.
Yeah. there
You
is.
know.
Yeah.
So I open it up, and not only that, as because sometimes he may tell me something that can't get out. So
Right.
he has to believe in me and trust me
Yeah.
with
Confidence.
that. And yeah,
You got to be a confidant, not only a wife, but a confidant.
Yeah.
Also.
Sounding board.
Guys, I've got to bow. I got that other appointment I got to run to
got
right
you.
now. I got to bow. But Amy and Alan, it's been tremendous. I'm glad y'all could join us today. We had to reschedule this one time due to some schedule changes, but so glad that you two could be here with us today. And I just think you're going to have much success, not only for yourselves, but helping other law enforcement officers and first responders throughout the nation with your story.
Thank you.
I want to add one thing. You got my phone number. I am open to talk to any wives that just is frustrated, don't have anybody else to turn to about anything. And it's anonymous. You can just call me, you can email me, or whatever.
And you're putting yourself out there. That
I'm
that is
putting
really
myself out there,
that's you
That's-
really
that's what being Alan-
believe in what you're doing, and I think that's awesome.
That's our ministry, I guess
Yeah.
you could say, since we're talking in terms of God. This is our ministry.
Well, okay, so since we went that way, when we started this, and I take no credit for this, I don't. I'm going to say that how this came about, but I'm not taking credit for anything. Throughout the last probably 3 years, my faith has grown tremendously, and I realized where I was making all the mistakes that I was making, and God really opened my eyes. He actually grabbed a hold of me a little over 10 years ago, and you and I were actually working in the same department at the time, Houston County. And since then, I've seen a lot of growth for me, and it's really strengthened over the last few years. But God kind of put it on my heart you need to do this, the Shepherd Station. And got with Andy, and because Andy was looking for a platform, and then thought Thomas coming in it just would all fit and work. And so far, it's been really good. But we don't do it for us. We do it for God's glory, because we know He has a message that we need to get out to everybody. And I say that because it started out as, we want to really reach the newer generation of upcoming law enforcement. We want to get those guys and ladies to do the right thing and do it for the right reasons. And we want to really reach men, no offense, Amy, because we believe that men need to start standing up and being men under Christ again. But it's kind of ballooned out. I'm kind of rambling right now. I'm sorry. It's ballooned out to we want to reach more than just, men, just first responders. We want to reach everybody. So I know your program is directed to law enforcement, and that's a big thing. It really is. It sounds like that anybody in any walk of life could really benefit from the program that you guys have put together, especially those struggling in their marriage, because marriage is hard, and it is like what you said, Amy, you got to choose it every day. Is that a correct statement? I mean, anybody could benefit from this?
Yes, and to kind of put it out there, currently in the process of building a similar course, but taking out the law enforcement aspect.
Yeah.
Because if you look at, like you just said, the clerk that works at the gas station, the person on the back of the garbage truck, they're having the same struggles. They're doing the same things that we're doing. They're just not wearing a badge. They're having struggles.
Yeah, because
So-
they live in the same. I mean, the society's driving
That's
us
correct.
to do that.
So currently, we're working on some of the wording. In the future, I hope to produce one that's just open.
Yeah, I think that would be outstanding. Outstanding. Thomas, you look like you got questions over there, man.
No, I'm good. I'm just taking it all in. This is super helpful. I've really enjoyed listening to you guys talk about your marriage, and it's really inspiring. That you've been married 3 different times, and Amy, you've not given up on Alan, and Alan, you've worked so hard to make things right. And I like Eric said, I think that anybody could benefit from hearing that, and because today in today's culture, divorce is it's like we talked about commitment in our last episode. divorce is just like what you do if you get tired of each other. And, even though you guys have been divorced, you still decided, like, it's funny because you made this commitment to each other, to still be with each other even after the divorce. It's like divorce didn't really mean anything to you. It's like, no, we're still together. Like, and you even said that. It was like, we still talk to each other like every day,
Yeah.
and so that's awesome. And that's the way it should be. I think people, Jess and I, my wife, we talk, and she's like, she won't even say say divorce, she'll be like the D word.
Yeah, we've got to that point now. We sat there and just said, okay, when we first started, the D word is off the table.
Yeah,
There's no
yeah.
option there. It's
Exactly.
It's completely off the table.
Right,
So,
right. And so it was kind of that idea for us too, is like, hey, I don't care how bad things get. Now, and I did have a moment in our relationship, in our marriage, where she should have left me, and she decided not to, not necessarily for infidelity, but other things. And she was like, why would I ever leave you? And that stuck with me forever, and that's really changed my life, and it helped me see God in a really merciful, just totally different way. And so
that wasn't Jess, by the way. That was God.
That was God.
Yeah,
It was
100%.
absolutely God. The only way
a
it could've
powerful
been.
moment for you.
But for you guys to hear what you're saying, I think there's so many couples, so many people that need to hear that message. And so I'm so thankful that you guys are doing this.
Thank you.
Well, it's easy to quit. It's the easiest thing just to quit. It's harder to hold on and to work on something. And if it's important to you, why not put in the work? You married this person for a reason. A lot of these people these days, I don't know if y'all think this way, they're marrying for the wedding. They don't know what commitment is, these younger people. And then a year or two down the road, I know a little girl now that's getting married, and her fiance is cheating on her, but she's getting married anyways. She knows it and she's getting married anyways. What's going to happen in 2 years? I don't know. It's just harder to put in the work. And I've never done anything the easy way. So why start now?
Doing the hard work, right? It makes it way more valuable. Things that are worth having are worth working for. And you guys have put in the work, especially Alan, you've had to, in order to, and I don't want to prolong the episode. I know that we already did a lot of the closing statements and stuff, but I do want to ask Alan one question is, I said that you're putting in a lot of the hard work. What is it that, I don't know how to word this properly in a way that would make sense. What is it that drives you to do that work? Because there's so many men that I think have that issue, but they end up becoming just numb to it all.
I just want to inspire others to do better for themselves and their families. Just inspiring others. A good example is, as we've been doing this, our daughter's in the United States Air Force, and she recently graduated with her bachelor's in counseling. And so she wants to go in counseling, and she had never talked about it. But over the years, as we've been doing this, she started studying, and she's going to go help others. So you're just inspiring others to help others. And if you are doing that, you're going to feel better.
Yeah.
So
she will eventually join us.
So
too.
you can see where the example that you guys have put out is, it's your daughter, but it's affected your daughter.
That's
in
correct.
A positive way.
Yes, and she plans to, in 2025, she will be joining us on some of our classes talking about how it affects your children.
Oh, wow.
Oh, that's amazing.
So she will be joining us in 2025.
So you guys are going to have a full spectrum program.
That's correct.
That's
awesome.
outstanding.
Yeah.
I'm reminded of something here, and you guys, to me, through all the struggles and everything, and I don't know why this came up, but Ephesians 5, I love this verse and these verses here. And if we could ever get to where we are living through God's plan, divorce would never exist. Mm-hmm. And to me, divorce is one of it. And to hear me say that, my history. To hear me say that, I can laugh about it now, but to hear me say that, people would look at me and go, who are you? Come on, dude. But to me, divorce is one of the most evil things that has ever come about. It has destroyed so much. But if we could ever get to the plan under Ephesians, and if you give me just a minute, and we'll try to wrap things up here, but Ephesians 5:23, For the husband is the head of the wife, even as Christ is the head of the church, and he is the Savior of the body. Therefore, as the church is subject unto Christ, so let the wives be to their own husbands in everything. Guys, here's where you need to pay attention. Husbands, love your wives even as Christ also loved the church and gave himself for it, that he might sanctify and cleanse it with the washing of water by the word, that he might present it to himself a glorious church, not having spot or wrinkle or any such thing, but that it should be holy and without blemish.
Yep.
Thomas, you said something a long time ago, and I've brought it out before. Men, you need to be the representation of Christ in your family, and that is to your wife and everything else, because the two became one. Y'all are one body, and you need to respect her that way. Women, wives, same thing. And you guys are living that, and that is amazing to me.
Yeah,
You guys
absolutely.
are an amazing testimony, and I am so glad you guys came on today.
Yeah, and when we really get it where we want, maybe we can convince our son to join us.
That's not
gonna be a
going to
fight.
happen.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, and that's something, the woman submitting to the man, but what that also says is the woman should joyfully submit.
Mm-hmm.
And
And I think that there needs to be the definition of submit. That doesn't mean that
No.
that they're second or less than
Right.
or anything like that.
well, and no, not at all. It means to serve, in the same way that the husband serves the wife,
Right.
but and to also, hey, he's got the final say. But there's another thing too, that the joyful.
Mm-hmm.
She can't joyfully submit if the husband's not leading well.
That's true. That's true.
And so what I'm seeing here is Alan is trying to, hey, I'm going to lead well, and then that makes Amy love you more, and want to stick
Most
this-
days.
most days, want to stick it out with you, to say, hey, okay, I see what he's doing his part. It's time for me to do my part, and that's a beautiful thing.
Is there anything else you guys would like to add? Because I think that's a perfect place to stop this today. An amazing story. I hope everybody got as much as I got out of it. Man, I'm kind of getting a little misty-eyed myself right now. I'm so proud of both of y'all. Alan, I can't tell you how proud I am of you, buddy.
Well, we enjoyed it, and thank you for having us.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
All right. Well, thank you guys for joining us today. As always, like we always say, go to our websites, go check out our stuff. We got a lot of stuff coming up. As a matter of fact, I went and got information on locations. So hopefully these classes that we're talking about bringing forth are going to be happening very, very soon.
Yeah.
We need you to support our channel, man. It's like Mark Driscoll says, go on there, give us some likes, give us a review, give us 5-star review. We don't want those ones. We need the help.
If you authentically, be honest. We don't want to cheat the system, but
we really would like for you to comment and tell us things that you want us to talk about, and any content you'd like to bring us. And hopefully soon we're going to get it where we might even be able to communicate back and forth, and maybe have some debates on that stuff. I really would like that. So.
Yeah, we are. We're gonna start getting some stuff really rolling here. We got a Patreon account that we're about to launch, and then we've got all kinds of just ideas and things coming out that we're going to let you guys know about. But the event, the home defense and preparation event that we're wanting to do, we're getting that rolling. So stay tuned for that. That's gonna come out pretty soon, and we are most likely, right now we're opening it up to 10 people, but we're going to, of those 10 people, we're going to just pick one random one, and they're going to get it for free.
Yep.
And so it's going to be a really cool event. So stay tuned for when all that releases.
All right. Well, again, we love everybody. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.